Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 2nd of March. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined firstly by Joshua Barry. How goes it, Joshua?
All right, mate. Same as yesterday. Thought I would enjoy the rewatch a bit more at come half time than full time. But yeah, lots to dive into this morning, I think, and try and understand exactly what happened yesterday.
Yep, and Blair Malloy joins us from Rangers Review HQ. All right, Blair, how goes it?
Yeah, echoing that, Derek. I think there's still a bit of deflation with everybody after yesterday. I think after the highs of that first half, then the tail off in the second half. Like I say, we're going to try and construct that post-mortem and figure out exactly where it went wrong today. But yeah, that's football, and it takes you on all sorts of a roller coaster of emotion. And unfortunately, today is a bit of a low ebb.
Yeah, that was pretty much a mirror image of the game at New Year at Parkhead, where Celtic were the dominant side, and then it turned around. Rangers, of course, coming back in the second half. Rangers, one of the best halves of football in this fixture I think I've seen from Rangers in recent years. Totally dominant, one-way traffic. It looked like it was only going one way. And then, Celtic coming back into it, making some half-time alterations, and then it was one-way traffic at the other end. Unfortunately, Celtic coming back from 2-0 down to claim a draw in stoppage time, and that's where we are. Unfortunately, it's led to many questioning a whole manner of things, where it all went wrong. So we'll do our best to try and delve into what exactly unfolded at Ibrox yesterday. Before we do that, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust, folks. You know the drill by now. They've got over 20 years of experience in the fencing trade. No job is too big or too small. They offer free consultations and 10% off with the code Rangers Review over on their website, willows-fencing.com. You've rewatched the game, Joshua. Based on what you witnessed yesterday and again, there are many questioning Rangers. Do they have the bottle to win this league title? I don't think they do, to be honest with you. I think a team that wins titles don't drop points last weekend at Livingston, don't collapse at Motherwell late on against 10 men, don't let a 2-goal lead slip in this fixture at half-time. Where do Rangers go from here? What do you make of it all?
Well, they're not in title-winning form, Derek. I think Livingston, I had my say on it. I think that's a freak game. I think they did well to come back. Yesterday, I'm in total agreement with you. We're going to get into a little bit of why it happened, and we've got a piece on the website that will kind of break it down in a bit more detail. But Rangers were so dominant in that first half. And going in at halftime, Yusuf Chami's applauded up the tunnel. And justifiably, you're thinking at 2-0, can Rangers go and score a third or a fourth? Celtic had one shot by the 50th minute. For me, game of two halves obviously is a big cliche. You're right about the January Old Firm, Derek. When we're looking back at that game, all we really focus on is not so much what Celtic did, but we focused on what Rangers did, how Danny Rohl changed it. There's a bit of a mirror image there to what Martin O'Neill did and how he changed it. And Danny Rohl rightly points out in the post-match press conference that there's two teams playing a game. You know, you've got to analyze it from both sides. I just think, Derek, that both teams had an advantage in their lineup, right? No tactic is perfect. Rangers had two men up front. We saw them do a similar thing that they did against Hearts. Loads of bodies forwards. If you look at the still images for both goals, you'll see how heavily Rangers load the Celtic box. And both times the goals originate from playing forward directly. The first one is a free kick. Rangers win the second ball and they score from there after some nice interplay around the box. The second goal is a channel ball. Rangers again win the second ball, and they've got the numbers in the box to capitalise. I thought the first half was played on Rangers' terms, and their man advantage at the top end of the park showed, Derek. And then in the second half, Celtic's man advantage in the middle of the park showed. Yes. Now, should Rangers draw that game from their position of advantage? No, they absolutely shouldn't. And I don't want it to sound like, you know, you're just excusing away what happened in that second half, because you need individuals to take control of the game. I think Jack Butland's kicking just evoked panic in his team, in stark contrast to someone like, as an example, Hatate coming on and bringing control into Celtic's midfield. There's a question about Rohl's changes because Diomande comes on to really play up top alongside Chermiti and try and do what Rangers were doing in that first half. instead of maybe going compact in the midfield and doing what we saw in the second half at Parkhead. So Derek, I don't think it's a case of Rohl goes into the dressing room and tells his Rangers team to sit off. I just think you saw the benefit of their direct approach in the first half, playing directly. And it wasn't just long ball football. Look at Mikey Moore's performance and how good Tua Romans was in that first half, and how Rangers retained pressure on Celtic. But those terms of engagement that they set in the first half then worked against them, because when they're kicking long in the second half and they're on the back foot instead of the front foot, all it does is invite the next Celtic attack. And that's an age-old issue that you go back to, I think, of sometimes Alan McGregor in Old Firm games 3-4 seasons ago. And it's the exact same thing, where you just don't have someone to put a foot on the ball and take the sting out of it. So that's it for me, that the first half suited Rangers, second half suited Celtic. However, the real sour taste that I think will come out of that game for Rangers fans is that when you're 2-0 up, when you're that dominant, I totally agree with you. You just have to find a way to manage the game from the touchline or on the pitch. And Rangers didn't, and it feels like just a huge, huge missed opportunity leaving Ibrox yesterday.
Does Danny Rohl come in for criticism, Blair, for you? Game management that second half in terms of substitutions, that's been criticised, that the timing of them, the way that he was unable to sort of match up to Celtic. It was, as we touched on there, that they really got a stranglehold of the game in that second half. Questions. I've seen a few Sheffield Wednesday fans getting in touch yesterday after the post-match video, saying this is what we've seen down at Hillsborough on occasions where you come out the traps in the first half and look absolutely brilliant, and then sit back, rest on your laurels in the second half and get pegged back. Danny Rohl, is fair to say, should be coming in for a bit of criticism of late.
Yeah, I don't think he's free from criticism at all from yesterday, Derek. I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past sort of 12 hours, trying to get these points straight in my mind about where I think it kind of went wrong yesterday. And I do agree with Joshua. I know this has been a narrative that I've seen online over the between the end of the game and just now, that Danny Rohl somehow went out to try and protect that 2-0 lead. I don't think that was the case. I think that football's a game of moments, right? And these are the fine margins on which things are decided, things are won and lost. And let's say that as a cliche, but if Tua Romans takes that chance in the very early minutes of the second half, it's 3-0, and it is a good chance. It's 3-0 and it's game over, and Rangers are how many you want for the day. That's it. Could be 4, could be 5. If he scores that, it's a completely different game altogether, and Celtic basically don't have a way back in. But where I do think Danny Rohl is at fault is his in-game management left a lot to be desired, I felt yesterday. I felt that Rio Hatate came on the park and Daisen Maeda moved up front, and Martin O'Neill, that was a bit of a masterstroke in terms of taking control of that game back, because Hatate and McGregor reverted to type and they know how to dictate the tempo of a game together. And when Hatate is on it, you know he's got the ability to do that. So he came in and all of a sudden they have that extra man in midfield and they started playing the game the way they wanted to play it. Daisen Maeda comes on in the middle. He moves into the middle position for Junior Amado. He all of a sudden gives the Rangers defence something to think about. He presses them high. He makes them make decisions quicker. And he also gives Celtic a bit of an outball and something to hit up the park. And I think that made the Rangers defence really get rushed and feel under pressure. And then that in turn made Rangers retreat. It made them fall back. And I think that's what people are maybe seeing as he's told him to go and be defensive. He hasn't. He just hasn't reacted to the Celtic changes that are forcing Rangers to be more defensive. And that's where I think he comes in for criticism, because I made this point after the game yesterday, Derek. He made 2 substitutions. For me, that's not enough when from 50 minutes onwards, there's only one winner of that game. Celtic are absolutely dominating Rangers for about the last 40 minutes plus added time in that afternoon. And the fact that you're only making 2 subs, one of which Diamande, as Josh pointed out, kind of playing out of position and not really doing the job that we would all perceive him to come in and do. And then Gassama coming on, you've got him to try and run into space. But even at that, there wasn't a lot of space for Jedi Gassama to run into. Now, I will caveat this by saying, look, I don't think he's got a real top quality centre midfielder on the bench that can come in and do what he wants to do. I think that once Tochi Chukwani looked a bit run out of steam, I don't think you've got anyone that can come in and fill in the gap for him. But equally, I think that once you take Ryan Nadiri is brilliant at pressing, something I really underrated in his game, something I noticed yesterday, that he harries defenders all the time, but he also basically ran out of legs, essentially. And once he took him off, he left Yusuf Chermiti up front essentially on his own. And we know that Yusuf Chermiti can't play up front on his own. It just doesn't work. We've seen it at Livingston. We've seen it at Motherwell. We've seen all these games where he just can't lead the line properly, and he didn't give Rangers any pressure valve to get up the ball up the park. So I would be critical, maybe saying that you should bring Majowski on, you should maybe bring Nadim Barami on. I don't think his in-game management was good enough, and I think in that second half he got outfoxed by Anil, which is the most disappointing thing.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Joshua? I think Anil, obviously he's a good manager. He's been around the block for a good number of years now. Danny Rohl is a novice with regards to managing that's for sure. Excellent coach, but still to figure out certainly the solutions to yesterday, that's for sure, but he has to learn quickly.
Yeah, you're right, Derek. He's only two and a half years into his management spell, and he will make mistakes. And over he's done so well to get Rangers back into this race. And I know people don't like hearing that, but let's not forget he's only been in this job, what, 4.5 months?
Yeah.
And what you saw yesterday, I think, I totally agree with all that Blair said there, and he articulates it really well. Because the issue for Rangers, for me yesterday, is they didn't react well. They needed a pressure valve, and Butland's kicking didn't give them that, and Chermiti couldn't give them that in the second half. I think the team looked really, really tired. But for me, Rangers changed personnel, but they didn't change approach. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? And if Danny Rohl goes to like a 4-3-3, like in the second half against Celtic at Parkhead, and then Rangers contrive to drop 2 points, then I think you can justifiably say, oh, he should have kept with the two up top. He should have kept trying to force the issue. But I do think, especially with the anxiety in the stadium, it became obvious that Rangers probably needed to, play compact and change their approach. Because as I say, they changed personnel, but they were still kind of trying to press the same way, or they were caught between two ideas at points. And again, I keep going back to it. I think Butland completed 34% of his kicks in the second half. Now, I don't think Butland has the instruction or the means by which to necessarily play through the press, because Daizen changes the game. I think he changes John Souttar's performance. I think he rushes Rangers at the back. However, there's that saying that we come back to, I feel like every single Old Firm, the faster the ball goes forward, the faster it comes back. And in the first half, that worked for Rangers. And I just felt from that period of strength, there was more of an ability to try and tinker, as we generally have seen Rohl do quite effectively, and gain a bit of a foothold. So, listen, over the course, you can't have everything, right? You can't have a team who's full-blooded and playing for second balls and playing for channel balls in the first half, and then suddenly has a 90% pass accuracy in the second half and keeps the ball. However, I do think that there could have been a bit of better game management on the pitch and off it to allow Rangers to capitalise on the domination that they've done so well to muster. It's an absolute travesty that game, Derek, is not about that Yusuf Chermiti goal. I think it's the best goal I've seen live. It was a genuine jaw-dropping moment. Not enough were able to, I guess, retain that level. I thought Mikey Moore was magnificent as well in the first half. I guess, hindsight's a wonderful thing. If Rohl could go back and do that second half differently, would he? Probably, yeah. But as Blair says, I don't think he's telling Rangers to take the foot off the gas. I think he's trying to keep them doing what they've done so effectively to build a 2-goal lead. But the terms of the game had changed by then, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Let me just add to that, Joshua, quickly, if I can, because you said there, obviously, you can have that sort of full-blooded approach in the first half and then go and become prime Barcelona, passing the ball around the deck in the second half, which I think is what Celtic actually did to Rangers in the second half. Instead of trying to out-physical them, they just outpassed them. They got the ball down and went, all right, you're bigger than us, but we can pass the ball better than you. And that's what they did. It's kind of what Motherwell did to Rangers as well. But the issue for me is the physicality in the first half. It's obvious that the players who are really good at bringing that, Nadiri, Chukwani, they're not able to retain that for a full 90 minutes yet. They don't. I don't know if it's fitness. I don't know if it's match sharpness, but they can't do it for a full 90. And Danny Rohl must know that. So you can't just come out at the end of the game and go like that, or they should have done it for 95 minutes. You know your players can't do it for 95 minutes. So you need to have a plan in place to go, all right, when Ryan Nadiri starts running out of steam, when Tochi Chukwueze starts running out of steam, what am I going to do? How am I going to change it? Because you can't just hope for the best, because they're eventually going to stop being able to do what they've done so effectively in the first 10 minutes. And then Celtic are able to just pass the ball about. Now, I get that. If you're 3-0, 4-0 up at that time, it's fine. The game's won. But very rarely in Old Firm games do you get that. And I think that was a little bit of naivety from Danny Rohl, thinking that, oh, we'll just maintain this intensity. When you know that these players can't do it for 90 minutes, you need to come up with alternatives, because that's what Martin O'Neill did. He seen the way the game was going, and he made an alternative plan, and it worked for them.
Well, this is what you had to say, Danny Rohl, after the game about games lasting 95 minutes, not 45 to 50 minutes.
Minutes, an outstanding football game from our side, I think, in all phases of the game. Much better team, good pressing, good transition moments, good possession stuff. We dominate them, they had no chance. It was outstanding, but football is about 95 minutes, not 45 or 50 minutes. Finally, it was clear for me, after 2-0 in the halftime, that they try something. We come well out after the second to the halftime. I think we had straight 2-3 good moments, and then you felt the momentum changed a little bit. We lose some ball in transition moments. We didn't attack the last line what we want to continue. They were struggling with them, and then they scored a goal, and then they have nothing to lose. They can go all in, and finally. They get a pen for the 2-2, and then you have the result 2-2.
There you go. Lots of comments coming in about the goals that were conceded. The first one's poor. Defensively, I think Daniel's got a decision to make for next week. There's a point that actually came in. You mentioned John Souttar a little earlier on, but Davey says, do we go Giga Fernandez on Sunday? He also says that Robin should be made captain next season, which is a conversation for another day, perhaps, Davey. But Giga certainly should be in contention for coming back into the team. If I was Nasser, I'd be knocking on Danny Rohl's door, Joshua, saying, give us a chance, bossy, because John Souttar hasn't been good. Let's call it that recently.
Yeah, I think, again, I agree with Blair that the way of the pattern of that game goes, you probably need to manage it better. Also, sometimes games just ebb and flow away from you, and that's probably when you need individuals, Derek, and you just, if Rangers see that game out yesterday, and they conceded a few shots from the edge of the box. They did concede chances. I think Celtic were worthy of their draw, but the late penalty they concede, if you look at where Fernandez and Souttar are, I think Souttar's a bit spooked by Dies and Maeda's movement. And if you're able to see it out, I also think maybe Jack Butland, is there an argument that he should come for that cross ball? Am I being too critical with that? I think there's maybe an argument that he should be a little bit more proactive off his line. If we're having this conversation and Rangers are 1-2-1, then you're saying, do you know what? Second half, let's focus on what went wrong there. But you've still got the result. You've still benefited from how well you played in the first half. But I still feel like, Rangers lacked 2 or 3 of those players to just get them through. And on a day like that, Derek, I keep going back to it. I think the way that you get through is if that second ball approach isn't working, then you have someone who has a bit of composure and possession to just relax the crowd and move the game 10, 20, 30 yards up the pitch. Because you look at, again, the contrast that second half, where Sinazalo is starting his moments on the ball compared to Jack Butland. One's on the front foot, one's on the back foot, and that sets the tempo. And on Nasser, Giga and John Souttar, I agree with you, because I think that Arne Slot used this reference with Ibrahim Konate when he was having a difficult start to the season. He's been at the scene of the crime too often in recent weeks, and you can't ignore the fact, Derek, that I think it's 3 wins and 8 Rangers have. Could be wrong, but I think that's what it is off the top of my head. And they've conceded too many goals like that, where you're looking at it going, that's avoidable. I guess every goal is. But yeah, I think that Giga he definitely has a claim. The fact that Suter is wearing the captain's armband, does that come into Danny Rohl's mind a little bit more? But yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you.
Yep. 4 draws in the last 6 games, Rangers, which is not title-winning form. 12 draws overall. It has killed Rangers this season. Point on the penalty. Spoke to the good Reverend Mike McCurry, a big friend of the show. He said it was a penalty, given the rules, as harsh as that sounds. But what annoyed me, and Jack Butland's got a fantastic record from spot kicks. He saved it not once, but twice before Hatate then slid in a third time to knock it into the back of the net. Stephen Dixon and a few others saying no one running in on the penalty. We were taught that in primary 5. That sort of summed up that second half, Blair. Celtic were winning all the duels in second balls that Rangers were winning in the first half. And that really angered me there, because Butland's produced 2 outstanding stops there. But the Celtic players are in on it like a flash.
Yeah, there is a little bit on their heels for that
Yes.
there. It's frustrating because you really back Jack Butland to save penalties, as much as we're critical of his kicking, and I think it's a valid point. I think that there was so many times yesterday where he put Rangers under pressure by just shelling the ball straight out of play when Rangers essentially have an extra man in midfield. You've got 2 sixes at that point, just pass the ball into one of them, pop it outside, and then you've got the ball back for 20 seconds to a minute, and everything calms down a little bit. But he just launches it, but where he does make up for that is his shot stopping, his penalty saving. And he did really well to get down to it, like you said, not once but twice. And then there's no one following it in, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know how you remedy that. It's just
they should have known. They should be well aware of Jack Butland's prowess from penalties. They should have been on that like a flash, and just flinging bodies in the way.
Absolutely, you're 2-1 up with a minute to go, or a couple of minutes to go. Just start throwing yourself in front of the ball and try and stop it in any which way. But it was a disappointing moment in general. I don't think you're being too harsh saying that Jack Butland could have maybe done better for the incident that led up to the penalty, Josh. I've watched it back a few times now, and I think that I'm of the belief that if a ball comes into the 6-yard box, that's the keeper's domain. They should be coming out and absolutely clearing out bodies to take that ball. He should want that ball more than anything. And we know that sometimes Jack Butland can be a wee bit iffy with his coming collecting things, but I think that he has to come out and just command his area there. And I think that was really indicative of a big problem for Rangers yesterday. There was just nobody to take charge. There was nobody in command. There was nobody to just calm everything down. There was a moment that we picked out yesterday when Emmanuel Fernandez gave the ball to Nico Raskin, and instead of just on the half turn, take it inside, just calm down, find a pass, he immediately just gives it back to Fernandez, who panics and just launches it. And it's like, that is playing exactly into Celtic's hands. They have got all the control of the ball, and Rangers are just looking like they don't want the football, they've never seen the football before. And when it's going well, I think Rangers really excel in moving the ball quickly, because they almost don't even think about it. It's just really reactionary. It's really quick. It's popping passes off, and they're like, right, okay, this is exactly what Danny Rohl wants to do. You can see it in motion. But then when it starts needing somebody to slow the game down, when it starts needing someone to actually calm it down a wee bit and take control of situations, I don't think Rangers have that. I think that on the John Suter point, to go back to that one if I can, the big thing for me with John Suter is he looks terrified of having space in behind him. He looks, especially when you get Daizan Maeda running at him, I think he looks petrified of him getting in behind him because he doesn't trust his own recovery pace. And I think that was one of the reasons why you've seen Rangers drop deeper and deeper, because Suter was basically leading that back line, and he was just retreating to make sure that Maeda wouldn't get in behind. But needless to say, Celtic found another way through. Would I bring Nasser Giga in? I definitely think the conversation's there to be had. Like you said, Josh, he's been at the scene of the crime too many times in the last few weeks. And it's one of those decisions where I think if Danny Rohl made it, I don't think you've got a lot of Rangers fans in the stands going, yeah, that's a terrible move. I think everyone would go, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Another issue I wanted to bring up that Chaparuni is mentioned. Thank you, sir. It says we've gone from being good at scoring from corners to being poor at it again. I thought it was poor last week, Joshua, and yesterday, I mean, Rangers had a free kick in a decent position in the dying embers of the game, and you're wanting that just curled into a dangerous area for the likes of big Manny to go and attack it, but they go short. They've been going short a lot recently, and some of the deliveries into the box, hitting the first man and what have you, that they've not been the best, have they?
Nah, I'm going to disagree with you. I think last week against Livingston, Derek, Rangers created the most chances from set pieces they have in this all season. So two Romans hits the post. Think of Chermiti's big chance. So they just didn't score like that. I don't think the set piece coach can control that, can he? That's
deliveries in. Yeah, they'll be working on deliveries into the box in training.
Yeah. But there's still the points that I don't know off top. It didn't feel like they created big chances from set pieces yesterday. Granted.
Yeah,
you're not going to score one every game. Over the course, I think Rangers' chance creation is still the best from set pieces since Danny Rohl came into the club, if not second in the league. And the short delivery, the reason they do that is because you look at Telo Asgard's goal against St Mirren or Aberdeen, or there's Manny Fernandez, is to move the defence. So I think that's, personally, I disagree with that. I don't think it was brilliant yesterday. I agree with you, but the Livingston game encapsulates it for me because Rangers should score from a set piece. You know, two Romans is the post away from doing it. And if Rangers take the lead there, then we're having a very different conversation. I just think that's fine margins. And I go back to the point last week, Derek, that if this was a marathon, not a sprint, if Danny Rohl had the whole season, I think you can swallow up those margins. I think you can take them in your stride. You can't afford to at this stage because the stakes are higher and you're coming from behind. So yeah, I think that set pieces isn't the biggest issue coming out of that yesterday, personally.
Fair enough. Next week, well, Sunday, Blair, Rangers take on Celtic again. Now, Martin O'Neill now knows how to get a result against Rangers. Danny Rohl's going to have to do something differently here in this game if he wants to achieve a positive outcome. What does he do? Now, a lot of comments on the show yesterday, and I get people that are emotional saying, they don't care about the cup, it's all about the league, and I get that. But this game is absolutely huge, massive for Danny Rohl as well. Rangers need to have a prospect of a cup final, something to aim at, because if this goes belly up in the league and Rangers are trophyless again, then the mood is not going to be great.
Yeah, I don't think you can write off any competition at this stage. I think that if we're talking about the league, I said yesterday that is a result that would be celebrated in Edinburgh much more than it should be in Glasgow, because I think that it's put Hearts right in pole position to go and make history and go and win this league this season. I don't think they could have hoped for any better coming out of that game yesterday, and the pressure's on Hearts now. They have some winnable games in the next few weeks, but they do have to go and win them. Do I think that that's the end of the story yet? No, I think there's still plenty more twists and turns to come. So I'm not going to say that Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, or dare I say even Motherwell are out of this yet, because I don't know what's going to happen in this entirely mental title race.
Well, put it this way. Do you think Rangers can win every game from here on in?
No, but I don't think any team can. I don't think any team can win every game from here to the end of the season.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of drop points by a lot of teams. I don't think that you're going to see any team the way that Celtic used to in the last maybe 10 years or so, where they just had to get it over the line so they would win 10 games in a row. That's not going to happen with either any of these four teams, I don't think. So I do think there's still a few twists and turns to come. I wouldn't write anybody out yet. I think that first is probably equally likely to happen as fourth at this point, which again is pretty crazy to say, but it's just the nature of this title race that all four teams find themselves in. So I think the cup can't be written off. I think the cup could be a massive thing this season. I think it gives Rangers something to build on. I think if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, that yes, there has been a lot of money put into the club by the takeover in the summer. Coming out of the first season of the takeover with nothing would be a disappointment. Obviously, everybody wanted the league title. Everybody wants to be at the top of the tree. And I think that, yes, but that is still achievable. It's looking more difficult and more difficult with every passing week. But I think that coming out of the first season under the new regime with no trophies at all would be a bit of a setback. And then you've got a lot of conversations over the summer about the direction of the club and such which. So I think if you get a trophy, you give the fans their day, then you do buy yourself a little bit of a breathing space. You get a little bit of a launch pad into next season to go, all right, well, if they don't win the league this year, they can go and have a right good tilt at it next year on the back of winning something. So you can't write the cup off. I don't get that idea of I don't care about it, because I personally do.
No,
In terms of the actual game next week, the concern for me is that I don't think Rangers can play much better than that in the first half. And if it gets inside these players' heads that we've played as well as we can for a half, and we still can't beat Celtic, then it maybe affects it a little bit. But the flip side of that, you can see that Rangers do have the ability to go and dominate Celtic. They do have the ability to go and be better than them. And like I said, if Two Robins makes it 3-0, Rangers romp home in that game, and we're having a completely different conversation here today. So it's those fine margins. I don't think it was miles away from it being a completely different game altogether. I think Rangers need to go out. They need to start well. It'll be interesting to see what tactics O'Neill takes next week. It'll be interesting to see if Danny Rohl just goes 4-2-2-2 again. We'll talk about that later in the week. Whether he'll just go basically the same as he did this week, and how Martin O'Neill will try and combat that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next week. But I don't buy the argument that it's pretty meaningless at this point. I know people are hurting because the league is getting a little bit further out of grasp. But I think that if you lift that Scottish Cup in May, if you don't win the league, yes, it's a major disappointment, but it's still something.
Yeah, I expect Martin O'Neill to maybe go with it the starting second half lineup, Joshua, in that game, because that served him well. Of course, Danny Rohl has to think up something different. Would you go along with that, or would you stick with the starting 11 that started the game yesterday? Oh, his mic is turned off there.
Oh, we've lost Josh.
Oh, nope.
You got me now?
Yes, there we go.
That's a sign we should wrap up. I was just going to say, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and not do what worked, right? I think the issue for Rangers yesterday, as we've discussed, is that they couldn't manage the game. They didn't change their approach when it went 2-0. When they got tired, they didn't change their approach. So if I was to predict how the game will go, I think it'll be quite similar. But Danny Rohl will try and manage the game. If Rangers do get into an advantage, Danny Rohl will try and manage the game differently. Because let's not forget, as much as Rangers can do much about Celtic in the second half, Celtic can do much about Rangers in the first half. You know, all these things are linked. Celtic's strengths are linked to their weakness, and vice versa. So we'll build up to it, myself and Blair, on the Saturday show this week as well. Just one point to end on. I agree with Blair. There's going to be twists and turns. I'm a little bit less optimistic with the league, Derek. I struggle to see Hearts dropping 6 points and Rangers gaining 6 points.
So do I.
Rangers have to go away to Tynecastle and Celtic Park. And I just think that the worst feeling in football, I think, Derek, is for anyone involved in any capacity, supporter, player, manager, is missed opportunity. And I think not only did Rangers miss the opportunity to propel themselves yesterday, but to hurt their rivals. The Scottish Cup, of course, is absolutely huge. I totally agree with Blair on that. I just think that with 9 games to go, you're running out of road, and I think that was just huge sense of missed opportunity yesterday.
Yeah, John Strutter said in his interview yesterday, they need to be clean from here on in, which translates as to need to win every game. And I don't see this Rangers team doing that. Unfortunately, they had to win yesterday, and they failed to do it. Bitterly disappointing. We'll wrap up there for now. A bumper show. Big thank you to you all for tuning in. Big thanks to Blair and to Joshua as well. There is the John Suter. It's in Bargo, isn't it? The press conference that he conducted. That'll be out at 12 noon. So if you can stomach that, folks, then that will be with you later on. But enjoy your Monday, whatever you are doing, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.